Collective Committee meeting. It is 7 p.m. on January the 21st. We hope everybody enjoyed their long extended weekend with Martin Luther King and then also with the inauguration. We have several items on our agenda this evening. The first one is the Building and Utilities Committee. And if Miss Gentry, if you could take us through your items, please.
Yes, so the first one is the NOPEC Grant Award. We were awarded by NOPEC a grant of $67,390 for the 2025 year. And this is one that, Mr. Liskovic, do you want to speak to this one? Or did you want the mayor to talk about it, the plans for it?
Well, I can definitely
Okay.
start, and he can fill
All
in
right.
where needed. So this has traditionally been a source of funds for city to perform energy efficiency projects as outlined by the program itself. And we've done so with submissions for reimbursements back to NOPEC over the past number of years that we've been eligible for it. So it covers anything from LED retrofits, HVAC improvements. We're actually in the middle of doing a project for street lighting upgrades. So again, it's kind of broad in its nature, so it gives us some flexibility to conduct projects like that.
So my understanding is that there's also a 2-year grant or grace period, so you have 2 years to spend?
Yeah, you have a 2-year spend on it.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Yes, Mr. Zuber?
Yeah, the only question I have, has there any been discussion on how we might be able to use this and incorporate it into ALPS in any way?
So with some dialogue on that, there actually is part of the ALPS project has lighting component to it. LED for area lighting, and then solar bollards for around the fitness trail. So I did kind of just a very cursory review. There's about $45,000 in eligible expenses as kind of presented right now. Obviously, when we get bid results back, we'll have a fine-tuned number. But yes, those would be eligible items that we could apply some of that funds towards.
Very good. Any other questions? Ms. Gentry, any other items?
The next one was regarding a resolution in support of the Ohio Municipal League's challenge for AT&T's tariff application. So this tariff application indicated that they want the cities to be responsible for paying for any relocation of underground AT&T facilities, they call it, regardless of the reason for the relocation. Mr. Ebert, do you want to speak to this one?
Yes, Ohio Municipal League is actually preparing opposition to this proposal. A lot of cities passed a resolution. As a matter of fact, you remember a week ago, it was supposed to be done. Since then, AT&T has pulled back on their proposal. But the Ohio Municipal League and the cities believe we should still go forward with this, because this just opens up the door for AT&T, First Energy, Columbia Gas, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to go forward with the opposition, prepare it, and I want to pass this with suspension of the rules at the next meeting, so we can get this to the Ohio Municipal League, so all the cities in the state of Ohio that we're part of the Ohio Municipal League will be in concert to oppose this, because this would actually create a large expense to all the municipalities.
Yeah. So does this the resolution need to be updated based on the new information, or is it still,
No,
because
it's
it
still good
references
the way it
the
is.
January
They just pulled it, but
17th?
they can file it in 8 days, so it's fine the way it is as it speaks right now.
Okay.
And cities who know about what's happened to poll, they're still proceeding with
Okay.
their resolution.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on then to the Finance Committee. Mr. Zuber. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong one here. Communications, Environmental, and Recreational Programming Committee, which we call SERP. Mr. Shamir.
We have the ODNR Nature's Work Grant Award in the amount of $69,816 for Avon Lake Play Space Alps. If I could maybe get the mayor to elaborate a little more, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure, happy to. So this nature work grant becomes available to all municipalities in Ohio every year. We have applied this year to offset some of the costs for ALPS. Aaron Fatch and his team did a great job in putting the application together. So we were happy to be awarded $69,816 to go to our all-inclusive playground at Blizzard Park for ALPS, and it'll help offset some of our costs. And you heard earlier, we're also talking about NOPEC. So obviously, we're trying to do whatever we can to offset these costs to get that playground up and running. Thank you.
Mr. Shamir, anything else?
Yes, this will be a resolution with suspension of the rule and declaring an emergency on next week.
Thank you. So then we can go out to bid,
Thank you.
hopefully soon. Mr. Mayor.
That'll be the plan to pass that on Monday, so we can go out to bid.
Very good. Thank you. And your next meeting, Mr. Shamir?
It will be next week,
Monday.
Monday, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving along now, Mr. Zuber, Finance Committee.
Okay, the first item we have is internet auction. This is auctions that the city uses to get rid of surplus property, gov deals, property room, and public surplus. These are items that are no longer needed by the city that we put up for public bid or auction through these sites. And this is something that we do every year, that we have to pass another enabling piece of legislation.
Any questions for Mr. Zuber or the Finance Director? Mr. Zuber, your next item.
These are several different programs that the city can use instead of going out to bid, that have already been authorized by the state of Ohio for us, so that we don't have to go out for bid. They've actually already done the bidding process for us. We use this often enough to where we have to pass a legislation so that we can be able to get usually discounted items through this. Sometimes they are the lowest, but other times when we do bid, we do get lower, or we get quotes, we get lower, but we want to be able to get back into these programs. And I believe this is a yearly thing also that we have to do every year.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Zuber? Mr. Zuber, do you have another one?
The next item is the appropriations for Bram Hall. I'm going to turn this over to the mayor for him to give us some discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I believe it was the last meeting in December, we passed a update to the contract for Bramhall Engineering, who supplies us with our municipal engineering services. We failed to put a dollar amount in that. So this ordinance basically provides for up to $150,000 for the services provided by Bramhall Engineering. And as our city engineer, much of their work involves reviewing plans, inspections, planning commission work, all kinds of different things. And again, they are our municipal engineer when it comes to legal matters.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mayor? Yes, Mr. Shamir.
Just a question that I've got. $150,000 covers what duration and what amount of work?
So it'll cover not to exceed $150,000 for this year. And I know that John Liskovic was doing a little bit of work on some of those costs. I don't know if, John, you have anything available or not, but we are looking at the billings for our contracted services, and we're going to be comparing that against, as we move forward for in-house engineering, you know, what that cost delta is. But I know that John's beginning that work. I don't know how far he's.
Yeah, I have just some preliminary. There's a lot of data to pull together and trying to tie back the purchase orders and stuff like that. I think for duration, what gets charged against that is task oriented. So, you know, whether we're requiring them to attend a planning commission meeting or a DRC meeting or something like that. So as far as how far the funding would go depends on how many things we assign to him for the work to be done. For a point of reference, in my preliminary review, we had a total expenditure for municipal engineering services, not for Bramhall, but municipal engineering services, of $270,000 for 2024. But that included support in planning commission reviews. It also included in reviews of grading topos and all those items that come in as part of the building process, project participation, general engineering. So with that, looking at that, just kind of some preliminary numbers, and there'll be a little bit more fine tuning to it. But early calculations show probably, with the addition of the engineering text, that some of that number will be reduced because we'll be able to defer like your plot plan reviews, your grading permit reviews. Those personnel will be able to start taking that back over, and so those are be items that we're going to be kind of fine tuning and getting a little more detail and in depth with as we move throughout the year.
So if I may, if I understand it, it will not exceed $150,000 in 2025.
As it stands right now, it will not exceed unless the only way it would is we have to come back to ask for additional. And that was done, actually, I think, looking at like 2024, I think there was three total dispersions that were requested from council.
Yeah. I mean, and this goes back, based on your work programs, I mean, I would have anticipated that you guys would have a rough number of engineering hours that you would require. So when I look at this number, $150,000, an extension of $50,000, these numbers, I mean, they can kind of balloon as things go out. And I would like to understand what those hours are and what the projections are. Thank you.
So if I could, Mr. Shamir, back in December, when we were given an example of the hours that the head engineer would be charging us, there were other lesser prices underneath there that showed where his employees could be performing work and what their charges were. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Leskovec, but I believe what you're saying is that it's really task specific. And because we're removing some of those tasks from Bramhall, they will then become in-house. Am I hearing you correctly?
50-50. So part of it is with the schedule values for the different staff members. That also applies towards, as an example, the design work that was done for the 2024 Concrete Streets program. So he's got survey people, he's got other staff that are working on those projects. So that's why those are included. Most of the hours that are part of the contract are directly related to his time here, whether it's a meeting with a resident or participation in other meetings with other stakeholders and stuff like that.
And I believe part of Mr. Shamir's question, Mr. Shamir, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that in December, it did not state through December 31st, 2025, correct?
That is correct, and I guess my questions are twofold. One is, I'd like to see when we're going to have our in-house engineering capacity back up and running and not relying on an external, and then having a definition of exactly the scopes of work associated with that external engineering capacity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions on this topic? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Shamir said relative to the in-house engineer. I think our charter calls for us to have an engineer, and I just wonder if there's been any steps made forward toward that, toward interviewing or trying to find one. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a question for Mr. Mayor.
So that is still in the planning stages. We had other positions we wanted to fill. We did have a contracted engineer, so that was a position we basically had filled for the work. As we fill these other ones, we're, as Mr. Liskovic stated, we're analyzing that. The idea is to hire an in-house engineer to take care of these duties. And again, I just want to caution, that doesn't mean that we still don't contract out for certain engineering services, but the bulk of the work and what Mr. Howard does is a lot of plans reviews. We had a record number of homes. All those have grading plans. We had other businesses. We had developments in progress. All that requires his review. So that's really where the bulk of the costs come in. That would all be handled by an in-house engineer.
Mr. Smith, anything else?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Zuber, do you want to continue?
The last item I have is the 2025 budget. We're going to have the first reading on that next week based on the time frame that the mayor put together along with the finance director. I'll be meeting with her to go over some of those different numbers. I know that we had gotten some more information from the county auditor, which we were waiting on. So based on some of that, we may start our finance committee meeting in February earlier than 6 to go over some of those things, but I'll go over that with the finance director here over the next week or two.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Mayor or Finance Director? No? Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, then we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the Public Safety and Health Committee. Mr. Cos.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I've got one item, actually two different things under that one title, and that is the flock safety contract purchase. These are two things that came out of the last Public Safety and Health Committee meeting with 3-0 votes. The first one is not going to require any action from council. All it needed was just a review and the approval from the committee. But it was for the annual cost for the flock safety cameras that there's 10 of them that are at our entrances and exits throughout the city at all points of entry exit. Back in 2023, at the end of 23, the city entered into a 5-year contract with Flock, and this is an annual cost as a part of that agreement, and the amount is $28,500. Again, that will not need any approval going forward from City Council. The second item we have is an expansion of the Flock system, and this is an item that we discussed at the Safety Committee last week. And I'm going to ask Chief Molnar if he'll come up and talk about this. And essentially, what we're looking to do is have cameras at the intersection of Walker and State Route 83 and Lear Road at Walker and Lear, in those two intersections. And the chief will talk about the reasons for this, and then we'll talk a little bit about the contract as well too. So go ahead, Chief, if you can kind of give an overview of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuss. So the cameras, there's going to be 2 at each intersection, one at the northwest section on the traffic light mast pole, and one at the southeast corner, also on the traffic light mast pole. And what those would do is capture 2 entrances each to the intersection. So the camera at the southeast will capture southbound traffic and eastbound traffic. Camera at the northwest will capture northbound traffic and westbound traffic. These are fixed cameras. We're going to get a clarified contract. It says pan-tilt zoom cameras on the contract, but these are fixed cameras, and the fixed cameras are a little wider angled to be able to capture both of those entrances to the. It won't affect the price, won't affect the terms of the contract, but I anticipate that we'll get that updated contract tomorrow to reflect the fixed camera rather than the pan-tilt zoom cameras. These are through the Flock system, and it's a lease where if any of the cameras get damaged, they replace them. They're also taking care of the storage of the video for 30 days. It saves on any server costs that we might have. It's wirelessly uploaded to the cloud, which saves on any fiber that would have to be run to the cameras themselves. The technical support aspect of things, it really is going to help. We want to pay policemen to be policemen, not IT guys, trying to figure out how to operate these systems. And with that, we have the existing platform of the Flock safety system, which is internet-based, which we're familiar with from the relationship that we have with Flock as it is now. So We looked at a few different things related to other local communities that are using it currently. I was able to speak with Assistant Chief from Willoughby today, and it talked about the pros and the cons related to this. It really is kind of a shift in policing where policing is kind of switching to what they call real-time crime centers. And real-time crime centers basically, there's already the ability to do it. The body camera videos of each of your officers, you can live stream that back to the police department. The intersection cameras, you can live stream back to the police department. The flock safety cameras where we're doing the license plate reading, you can get alerts sent back to the police department. Everything is, one of the things that's coming up with that is drone as first responder. People have heard these terms, drone as first responder. Flock is involved in that as well, where you basically get an alert as to this is where the call's at. And before the officers even get there, they have a drone in the air surveilling the area where the officers are going to be responding to. That's the direction that policing is going. This is a step in that direction.
Any questions for the chief? Yes,
if I
right
can-
ahead, Mr. Koss.
If I can just continue. So, Chief, we talked a little bit about the number of hours that can be accessed per month. Could you talk a little bit about that and it's live streamed, but it's uploaded to the cloud. Can you just kind of talk about the process of that? And also, why these two intersections? Can you talk into what you see as the safety need, as the policing need?
Yeah, so the busiest intersection in town in terms of traffic and in terms of accident volume is State Route 83 in Walker. And it's 3 times more accidents at that intersection than at the next highest intersection, which is Walker and Lear. So, but a lot of those top 10 intersections are either Walker and Lear based, Walker, Lear, or State Route 83 based. So if let's say there's a hit skip at State Route 83 and Walker, well, now we have the ability to get the make, model, color of the vehicle, especially if it's occurring at daytime. Nighttime, we might be a little bit more challenged because colors are harder to make out. But now we enter that into, let's say, the flock camera system and say, well, it came from southbound on State Route 83. We have a flock camera just 40 seconds earlier capture a plate coming northbound on State Route 83, same make, same model, same color, involved in that hit skip accident. All captured on video. It's just makes the job of investigating it that much easier. So State Route 83, we get a lot of accidents on State Route 83. Same with Lear, but most of those are occurring at the Walker intersection. But it's not just going to help for the intersection itself, it's going to have help for anything that's traveling through that intersection. As far as the download capability, that's another reason for the adjustment to the contract. When I talked to the assistant chief from Willoughby, he says it's that 25 hours per camera of live streaming. He says they don't even come close to that amount for whatever reason. But we're getting clarification on, when I talked to the salesman earlier today, he said that that's an old language that they used with just the solar powered cameras. Since ours are going to be hardwired into the, with power, that isn't gonna apply to us. So I'm getting additional clarification on that, but everything is gonna get sent directly to the cloud, and we'll have access to be able to download it for 30 days.
Right. And if I can just continue, and I think we know the answer to this, but just want to say, these are not speed cameras, correct?
Yes, yeah, no speed
Okay.
cameras. These are basically investigative assistant cameras. These are real-time crime pre-arrival cameras. These are after the fact, how did the accident occur type purpose cameras.
Right. So the length of the contract, this is a 4-year contract, and the total amount of it is $53,000. It'd be $17,000 the first year, and then $12,000 for each additional year. So, you know, just the simple math is once these are installed, it's basically $1,000 per month to assist the police department. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any further questions for either the chief or for Mr. Collins? My colleagues? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for coming in.
And if I may, Madam
Yes, go right
President,
ahead.
So I intend to bring this for next week's meeting, suspension of the rules and passage per the vote of the committee. The date of the contract is already passed, and they're holding this for us, so we wanted to expedite it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else from your committee?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move along to the Public Service Committee. There's 2 items that came up, and as you know, I've been ill, and thank you for the wishes of wellness, because they worked. I'm back again. And 2 items came up that need to be taken care of. So we're going to talk a little bit about them. So in Avon Lake, there is a zoning rule for agriculture, and every 5 years, somebody who has already gone through the agricultural designation needs to reapply again. And the county also needs to have this done. So there's a business in town that we're all familiar with, Klingshirn, and they own a number of properties, different parcels. And as you can see, one is ABK and the other one is LNK. And the parcels, they need to be, like I said, for the city, 5 acres or more. And what you're going to see in your paperwork is that LNK, excuse me, is 4.78. However, adjacent to it and part of the same use is 1 for 1.95. So yes, they are over 5. The other one is 19.74. So yes, again, they are over the 5. Now for the county, they'd like to see 10 acres or more. Plus, in addition to this, he gave financials from 23 to the, and also for 24, which is part of the application for the county. And the need is to have 3 readings and to have a public hearing. There will be a public hearing on February the 10th. This is per the requirement with the county. And then Mrs. Ross-Marin will be, if it does pass, Mrs. Ross-Marin will then be facilitating the paperwork to the county. Mrs. Ross-Marin, is there anything else that I should add that I haven't spoken about?
No, I think you covered it.
I covered it. Are there any questions amongst my colleagues on this one? Okay. So that is what we have on for then next week will be the first reading. The next item that we come to is public input. And before we have public input, I wanted to respond to a phone call I received and some of the social media that I've received as responses to Mr. Mayor's statement from the Mayor Minute that was on Facebook this past week. And he spoke about public discourse. And from the City Council President's point of view, because each one of us, there's 7 of us up here, I'm going to speak from my point of view. From my point of view, having discourse that is from various perspectives and opinions is wonderful. And when it's really constructive to help us find solutions, it is so desirable and wanted. What is very difficult in any position is to have aggressive language sent towards us. And I know we signed up for that. You can call us every vegetable in the book. But what we really would like to have is is assistance in solving the problems and coming to wonderful solutions for the community. What we do is in public domain, so we try our hardest to be transparent. We respond very, very quickly to any of the records requests that we've received, especially since we now have a part-time records clerk. The issue that has come up is that there's been a tremendous increase in records requests to the point that in 1 month there were over 66 to 68,000 emails that had to be sent back for a records request that was made in December. And we're looking at taxpayer money and the best way to use it. And individuals, of course, they have the opportunity and they have the right to question everything that all of us do. We'd like them to work with us. We can get to the bottom maybe much quicker. So that was my statement. And perhaps there are others here, my colleagues, that might want to make a statement, and then I'm going to open it up to public input. I have any statements from my colleagues on this particular topic? Yes, Mr. Cross.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this last week when I was sitting in your chair, Madam President.
I appreciate you taking over.
Yeah,
thank you.
But I support the comments that were made. I think that the one thing that we need to remember is it's not necessarily us here. I mean, like you said, we signed up for it. My concern is with our staff and the people that work here. Full-time is their job or part-time is their job. And the amount of time and effort that it goes into fulfilling a number of these things, which in my opinion, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think is excessive. So I agree with what the mayor had to say. It needed to be said, and I support what you said as well too, Madam President.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to say on this topic? If not, then we're going to move forward to our public. And come on forward and just give us your name and the city that you're from. Thank you.
My name is Malachi Witt.
Welcome.
I live in 126 Woodstock. I don't mind giving my address. Madam Chairman, President, I'm shocked at the incoherence that I just heard. I have a personal belief that all of us here, elected officials, are not masters of the residents. I believe that all elected officials are servants of the residents. That being said, I was deeply saddened and disturbed on January 20th when the city published the video that you just mentioned, where the mayor went on to specifically name, defame, and attack 2 of our residents and incorrectly characterize them for exercising their rights. And I'm just frankly disgusted by it, that our representative attacked our residents for exercising their rights. And the excuses that I'm hearing right now are incoherent, saying that because the staff are doing their job, this is unfortunate. Now, every time I've been up here at this podium, I am up here advocating for the residents of this city, and I'm doing it again. Because what happened in that video is trying to scare residents away from exercising their rights by making public records requests. According to Ohio Revised Code, and I'm just going to read it here, take my time to read it. I don't have the section up here. I think it's 143. 149.43. If there are any residents that may have been frightened by what the mayor said, it's important for you to know that in section 4, the city is not allowed to deny your records request if you do it anonymously, and you are not required to disclose why you're requesting the records. So if you are afraid that the mayor might name you next and try to defame you in front of the entire city, you can make those requests anonymously. The second thing I want to address is that this excuse that the city's being overwhelmed. And according to the ORC code also, in section I, the public office may limit the number of requests to 10 per month and sending them out by postal service as long as the requests are not used for commercial purposes. So this excuse that the city's being overwhelmed is unreasonable. And again, it's, in my opinion, it's incoherent because these are the servants of the residents. And they are lawfully making requests. That is their right. And our chief executive went out in public to directly attack 2 of them. And I'm just deeply saddened and disgusted by that. I don't understand the purpose of it. They haven't done anything wrong. And I guess that's all I have to say. I can't believe this is happening. Are we in a dictatorship or what? I mean, we're allowed to exercise our rights. If someone talks too much for exercising their right for free speech, are we going to hear about how you're talking too much? You're just overwhelming us with too much talking. There's just too much of it. I don't understand it. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Running for city council. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Witt, for sharing. Excuse me. Anybody else? Your
Hi, good
name
evening.
and your city?
Mike Dunford, 645 Russ Drive, Avon Lake. I'm here to talk about trees, or lack of trees, I guess. If you remember, we were here a few months ago about Current Village and the Pulte development, and the agreed upon buffer of trees that they had certainly agreed to keeping when they purchased the land from Cobb Builders, I guess a year and a half ago. They were going to leave the buffer of trees on the north and east side of our properties adjacent to each other. Well, last week they started clearing that land east of our property, and I want to thank the mayor, Mr. Shamir, and Mr. Liskovic for their quick response, because they all three came out and took a look. And as you'll see, as you've all seen, is part of the buffer was removed. They're saying they removed it per the drawings, which the drawings are probably showing, as you said, an easement and things of that nature, but they agreed to leave trees, and then they cleared them out and said there's an easement. Well, maybe they should have moved the easement, I don't know, but the trees are gone for the first 100 feet from Hanford heading north. The trees are gone. Now, thank you, Mr. Liskovic, who is an intermediary with Pulte, with Mr. Filipkowski. He's agreed to, at the appropriate time, send us drawings of landscaping they plan to do to improve it. And I'm just here for two things. We're open-minded. We understand we cannot undo what's been done. I mean, some of these trees were 40, 50 years old that they took down. And the reason we want them is we sit up above the property that's being developed. And so we're concerned at that intersection. That's why we went from the roundabout to the Y. We thought they'd take less trees out. Well, they took as many trees out, whether it was a Y or a roundabout. We're concerned about headlights coming into the back of our properties. And the fact that we're up higher, those larger trees, we're gonna knock some of that down. Well, now that they're gone, there's nothing to knock anything down. So yes, we're interested in what their plans are for landscaping, and they're gonna get our feedback. But we're not looking for a couple shrubs and a tree. That's not gonna suffice. And what we're open to and hopeful that they'll be open to some kind of mounding, possibly. I mean, I don't know all the restrictions of what they can and can't do, and they can't put it back the way it was. But we need to find a solution. I'm looking for your assistance when the time comes, that we all work together to find a solution that works for the city, for Pulte, and for our community. That's number one. Number two, and Mr. Shamir saw this last week, there's a herd of deer that used to live back there. And they now have no cover of trees, and I'm talking anywhere from 10 to 20 herd of deer. They're lost, and they're starving. And I know we talked about it, it's public, it's private land, we have no ordinances to take care of it. But we're not doing this deer any favor by just letting them, especially in this weather. They've got nowhere to go, and they're starving. And I think we're torturing them. So I don't know what the solution is, but I don't believe status quo is a good solution for the deer. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, sir. And I want to thank staff for responding to him, along with Mr. Shamir, the mayor, and Mr. Liskovic. Thank you. And I believe that, Mr. Liskovic, there's probably more to come.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Come on up. Welcome.
32066 Hanford Boulevard.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I applaud what Mr. Dunford just said. I guess my concern is more of accountability. How did this happen? They're building these houses back there, so your inspectors go in, you say, hey, that wiring's wrong, you make them fix it. The pipe is wrong, you make them fix it, right? You agreed to leave trees. Was anybody watching? Who's responsible for monitoring, clearing 100 feet plus times 20 feet wide, they're gone. You can't tell them to go put it back, like you can tell them to go change a piece of wiring. So, you know, I don't know who's responsible. I would hope that the mayor would find out who's responsible and get some remedial action going of some sort. But that's my concern about that. I applaud the mayor for your mayor's minute or whatever it's called. I think it's long overdue. I've said that at this council meeting before. You people take a lot of abuse. I've heard the word defamation used. Well, you've been defamed quite a bit. The words I hear all the time are you're crooks, you're corrupt, on and on it goes. Cordial and polite discourse has pretty much worked with the exception of the trees for us. We came to the city, and you guys have responded to Mike and his concerns as well. But this whole idea, when I requested information from the city, it came quickly, but it did it politely and nicely. Didn't have to call anybody crooks or threaten anything. I know about a certain visit that was paid to a city official on Christmas Eve and served with some baloney papers with somebody else sitting in the car taping it. I almost hesitated to put my address up here because I don't need any visits from anybody on Christmas Eve. And to anybody that might think about that, just so you know, I have a fence in front of my yard. Sidewalk is yours. My property's mine. Our development has got signs posted. Don't come in the back. And if anybody does it, I've used them many, many times over the years. I got a team of lawyers downtown that'll put anybody on their knees. Thank you. I've got 2 minutes and 56 seconds. I'd like to maintain that if it's necessary.
We can't do that, sir. If there's a topic you'd like to continue with?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Come on up. Thank you. What's your name and your city?
Gerald Phillips, Avon Lake, concerned citizen. I want to talk about fact and fiction. The mayor seems to allude that I just spew out fiction, okay? Well, let's talk about facts. The mayor signed a letter of intent without an ordinance authorizing him to sign the letter of intent. That's a fact. Another fact, we got an appraisal for the parkland for $2.37 million. That's a fact. Todd Davis came and said we didn't have an appraisal. That's a fact. Amy Gentry asked if there was an appraisal. He said no. That's a fact. Todd Davis deceived and lied to this body about the property being worth $15 million when we have an appraisal for 2.3. That's a fact, Mayor. Let's talk about the implosions, okay? Our ordinance 64810C8 says no demolition before 7 a.m. City of Avon Lake adopts the Ohio State Fire Code. The Ohio State Fire Code, section 5607.4 has restricted hours. Surface blasting operations shall only be conducted during daylight hours between sunrise and sunset. That's a fact. The fact that we have the Avon Lake Fire Code is the state fire code. That's a fact. The fact is the implosions, both implosions occurred before sunrise. Both implosions violated both your noise ordinance and the state fire code. That's a fact. Not fiction, okay? And the mayor, who's safety director, that's his job, to enforce the laws. He's in charge of the fire chief and the police chief. He was told about the violations. He did nothing. That's a fact. He was asked to cite them. He did nothing. That's a fact, not fiction. Second implosion. 4 council people, okay, asked the mayor to stop the second implosion because the wind was coming out of the northwest. Mr. Shamir, Ms. Gentry, Ms. Fenderbosch, Jeffrey Smith. That's a fact. And the fact is, the mayor, as safety director, ignored that. That's a fact, not fiction. Let's talk about the Brownfield Committee, okay? The Brownfield Committee. The Luca letter is a fact, not fiction. The letter says, as you're aware, the city has designated the CIC to lead the city efforts to redevelop the lakefront, including the Avon Lake Power Plant. Steve Lucas says, in this role, I am serving as the key liaison for communication between the city administration, city council, and CIC regarding the redevelopment. That's a fact. This letter is a fact. Signed by Steve Luca, Chair, Brownfield Committee. That's a fact, not fiction. Todd Davis's bills, okay, says on the February 26, 24, attended Brownfield Committee meeting. That's a fact. Brownfield Committee call on February 19th, 24. That's a fact. May 17th, 2023, attended Brownfield Committee meeting. That's a fact. February 2nd, attended Brownfield Committee call. That's a fact. Also, a fact is I got 2 tickets for disorderly conduct, which are totally different. That's a fact. Tampering with evidence, tampering with records. The mayor seems he likes to target people for exercising their First Amendment rights, okay? 2921.45 prohibits him from targeting and interfering with my constitutional right to speak, and that's what he has done.
Thank you, sir, for sharing. Is there anybody else that would like to speak tonight? Come on up. Just give us your name and the city that you're from.
William Zimmerman, beautiful Avon Lake. So let's talk about some additional facts. One of which is that Robert Rules of Order, newly revised, shall govern the proceedings of the council in all cases. That's a fact. Govern all proceedings. Doesn't matter if you like it or not, these are the rules that we're supposed to work by. It's the rules you play by. My profession, if you break a rule, you call it on yourself. None of you have the integrity to do so. Because, as it also says in Robert's rule, the public has the right to make personal, critical, or harsh remarks, including vulgarity or obscenities. The court has found the members of local government must follow the rules of the decorum, but members of the public are not bound by them. Plain and simple. Another fact. So, based upon all of that, the mayor puts out his minute, which I believe was a sick joke. Trying to chastise us because we're looking for the truth. That's why we made all the public records requests. That's how we found out the information. That's how we sued you in court. That's why you guys are dodging us. But we'll get our day. I'm not worried about that. Because we have the information. You guys don't get it. So, all the things that I've stated so far are very much facts. Just like the mayor can be removed from his position by city council. It takes several of the council people to do so. That's a fact. I don't know if any of you care enough to do it, because he's acted inappropriately. He's violated my civil rights, just like Marty did, just like Zilka did. He's just another piece of trash in the bin. Goes on and on. The Brownfield Committee is gonna take the city down. Because the people behind it, Mr. Arnold, the mayor, the law director, have all moved forward with their ideas that this was going to be something by the citizens. It wasn't by the citizens. They were taken into account for by Mayor Zilka and the other people when there was voted 6-0 to start the Brownfield. From everything that I've read, it says it's a full-blown committee, had votes at the CIC meetings. Everything's been done above water, but now you guys want to claim it's not. He should have resigned by now. He has no character, no integrity. We haven't even served him yet, but we will. So one last thing I want to talk about quickly is Mr. Koss is used for the cameras, flock system. So it says 46 accidents at Walker and 83. 3 times more than Lear and Walker. There's no doubt about that. The problem is, as I break it down, and then I went through all the police reports, those accidents aren't happening at the intersection. They're happening a quarter mile down the road from it. And then they want to incorporate it into the intersection. They're happening at the landings, at the entrance to there. They're happening at Taco Bell. That's not the intersection of 83 and Walker. It's not even close. So as I went through all of them back there, and of course now I've misplaced my paperwork. Anyhow, regardless, it's been 8 or 9 instances at the intersection that a camera would actually pick up. It's useless. It's Flock's way of hooking you again for another 50,000. 53,000, I think, is what Mr. Koss calls it. That'll be at the next meeting. Oh, 50,000. That's the same amount that I asked for from all of you because we're fighting corruption in our city. Concerned citizens.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to say something? Let's hear. Seeing none coming forward. Seeing none coming forward, there's just a couple dates I want to remind everybody of before we close the meeting. The next council meeting is going to be January the 27th at 7 p.m. in these chambers. The next CCM Collective Committee meeting is going to be February the 3rd in these chambers. Council is going to be meeting this Thursday, excuse me, at 5:30 in the chambers to discuss possible ordinance changes to Chapter 220, which governs our council. Anybody else have any input? Yes, Mr. Shamir?
The Parks and Rec Commission meeting, which was scheduled for tomorrow, will be canceled because we don't have enough of the members present. So that will be rescheduled to a further date at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any informational items? Seeing none, we're now going to adjourn, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for coming.